Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the Arizona Infrastructure Report Card 2020 update. Did we pass? Today, Jose Aguilar will be talking to us about the findings of this report card. Jose is a PM in Aviation and Transportation at WSP USA in Tucson, Arizona. He has a BS in Civil Engineering from University of Arizona. I would say go Wildcats, can't do that. And then he is currently the ASCE President-elect of the Arizona section and the incoming chair of the National ASC Committee on Younger Members. He also was the Arizona Infrastructure Report Card chair and will be speaking to that today. Jose is also a licensed drone pilot, which I don't know how he has time with all of his ASCE commitments. He also completed the San Francisco Marathon. He loves hiking and traveling, although he says he's been doing that virtually via Netflix. Without further ado, here's Jose Aguilar.
Thank you so much, Diana, for that wonderful introduction. I mean, I think we all can share that we've been doing a lot of Netflix lately and not a lot of outdoors. Although I was out and riding my bike this morning. I'm down here in Tucson and it's starting to feel a little cool in the morning, so I have to take advantage of those few minutes in the morning. So good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining me today and learning more about the report card. It's a little bit different with this whole Zoom. I can't even see you all, so it's tough to kind of read people this way, but I'm just excited that you joined me today, and I want to thank you for taking the time to listen in. So as some of you might be aware, we actually released our report card on September 16th. That was last week on a Wednesday. And usually we would release the report card here at the state capitol in Phoenix, but unfortunately we did it through Zoom this time, so just to make sure that we keep everybody safe. And so I want to, so one way that I can engage with you all, and we'll try this, hopefully it works, and I'm going to put a few polls up here. And so you can do this by either going into the website or texting, but you can go into, if you're doing a website, you can pull it up and put pollev.com and then /JoseA057. So I just want to see if this works. If not, we might skip it, but I just want to see, did you all attend the virtual release last week? And this is a way for me to know how much in depth I should go into today with the grades. And if you've all already attended, then I will definitely speed through some slides. So it's just a way for me to kind of gather where people are at. I'll give you a few seconds there. And it's looking like I have a 20-second delay, so I'll give another 20 seconds extra. And for those of you that did attend the virtual release last week, fear not, today's presentation is not the exact same as last week, so I do have a couple of extra slides. Some of them might look familiar, but some of them will be new content. So looks like we're getting some results in. Most people have not attended. I'll give maybe another few seconds to get those in. And I'm going to be doing a few of these, so as long as you keep it open, you should be able to see the upcoming polls. So, all right, so it looks like a lot of people did not attend the virtual release, and oh, there's a few people that did join. Okay, awesome. So thank you all for filling out the poll. So I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. We all know what the report card is about, and so I will go through some slides from the release, but it was quite different, so I encourage you all to watch it. It is on Facebook. If you look up our Infrastructure Arizona page, you can look that there. But today we're going to go into a little bit more depth into what we can do. So I know it's a different audience. That audience was more public, general public, and some engineers, and then also politicians. So we wanted to keep it nice and even for everybody. So today, I know I'm talking to a lot of contractors, a lot of engineers. So I'm definitely going to throw in some more math in there for you all. Okay, so our infrastructure. I mean, we all know how important clean water is today. That is something that we need to be doing, washing our hands every so often, and making sure that we have clean water is very important. We want to make sure that every time we flip the switch that the electricity goes on. And that's why we're all able to gather here today. So thank you to our electric and all our broadband. And I am having some Wi-Fi issues, so hopefully today is not the case. But we also use our roads to get our groceries, go to the doctor. And so it's definitely very important to have all of these types of infrastructure, right? And so here I'm just kind of outlining the process, right? So you have your vegetables out in the field, agriculture, and then it has to be shipped through either train, trailer, plane, and then it gets to your groceries. And I think that's what a lot of the general public just doesn't really think about, the behind the scenes, right? When they go to a grocery store, they go pick up their fruit, their vegetables, but they don't really think about the process that it takes to get there. So I know infrastructure is something that is thrown out a lot. And so I want to see from all of you, what does infrastructure mean to you? And that can be a simple word, a sentence, just what is infrastructure to you? I think we hear it on the news all the time, but what does it really mean? And what does it mean? I mean, to us engineers, we work on infrastructure, but to the general public, that might mean something different. So I just want to see what you all think of when you think infrastructure. And obviously, this is going to be biased by which industry you all work in. So we'll also get a sneak peek into what people are working on. All right, safe transportation. I'm assuming those are go 2 and 2, but you can also think about safety, right? On its own, the framework, a city. Yep. I'll give maybe 5 more seconds for you to get your responses in. All right, we're getting more answers in. So you got need, transportation, utilities, physical, framework, business. So if you put in 2-word answers, it'll probably split it. But yeah, it means business, it means jobs, it means everything in a city, right? It's made up of our infrastructure. And so we can see how important it is, and people definitely rely on it every day. Every day we use some sort of infrastructure. I don't think you go a day without using something from our infrastructure. So thank you all for submitting your responses. These are really helpful, and you can all see that we have a common sense of what infrastructure means. And the bigger the word, the more people put that. So roads, I mean, usually people do think of roads, but they don't think about levees or dams, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today. So I'm going to stop that there. And so we're going to start the conversation today, and I'm hoping that you take away some facts and some idea of what you can do next, right? So hopefully the presentation doesn't end here and then you just go on with your life. I'm hoping that I will inspire someone, to at least one person, to do something about our infrastructure and to help guide our policies. So the 2020 update is what we released. And so the last one that we did was in 2015. I'm not sure how many of you had the chance to read that, but since 2015, we've been using that report card, and it was due for an update. So we updated it into 2020. And so a key thing is that 7.3 million Arizonans are currently growing, and they're moving. And as you can see in this graph, we're getting a lot more people in, and there's been a peak in the last few decades. So Arizona is among the top 3 states in the country for raw population and percent growth in 12 months. So it increased 1.7%. And both Phoenix and Maricopa County have ranked first in the fastest growing cities and counties. So you can see that our cities are growing, and we need to prepare for that. For the release of the report card, I had the chance to talk to Governor Edward Rendell, and he was the 45th governor of Pennsylvania and is the former chairman of the National Governors Association. And he's been an amazing advocate for our infrastructure investment, and he's been pushing infrastructure to be included in COVID-19 stimulus relief packages. He was part of the Building America's Future bipartisan group. And so that is something that we also want to take away today, right? Is that you can be from both parties and agree that we need to build our our America's infrastructure. So I just took a little quote from him here, and he mentioned, he's like, you cannot expand your population without building out an infrastructure to handle the expanded population. And so in the case of Arizona, our population is expanding, and so we want to make sure that we are putting in the right investments to accommodate for that. He mentioned a little bit about the infrastructure jobs that are created by the Panama Canal expansion. And so you can see here that we have 3 ports over on the East Coast that are some of the main ports. But he did mention that some of the ports are not updated with the new standards, so the ships are not able to port there, and so they're going to Canada and porting there to do their work. And so that's a lot of jobs that are going to Canada because our ports aren't to the best standard and they're not updated. So it just generates a lot of jobs. Those are a lot of shoreman jobs that could be created if we were just to upgrade our ports on the East Coast. So it's a national problem and a national issue. And so it's just a little bit of a conversation that we had because Governor Rendell has worked on that national push. And so today we're going to talk about just Arizona alone. So the 2020 update. And I want to start off by saying that I want to thank all of the committee members that were involved. This was not just me. It was a team of 24 people. And I want to preface this by saying that I did not write all the chapters. So I know a bit about each one of them, but I'm not an expert in all of them. So if you have some questions that I can't answer, I will definitely reach out to these chapter authors and they can answer your question much better than I can. But I couldn't have done it without them, so I just want to thank them for helping me put this together. And so we'll get started with looking at the grades. So the grades are based on a school grade platform, and it's A, B, C, D, and F. And so we'll look at the 2020 grades. So you can see them here on the board. There's 9 different categories, and our GPA was a C. So to answer the first slide is, did we pass? Well, we did pass, and we passed with a C. So I guess we can all go home now, right? We're going to talk more about what made up this grade. And so you can see, I wanted to throw this slide in there to just compare it to the 2015. So as you can see, and also compare it to the national grade. So the 2017 national grade was a D+. And so we're definitely doing better than the nation as a whole, but there's definitely a lot of room for growth. So you can I'll leave this a few seconds so you can take a look. Some categories improved, such as aviation, and some categories did not. So like rail. So those are some of the things that we need to start comparing. And so now that we have the 2020 report card, in 2025, we'll take a look at these grades again to see if we've improved. So I mentioned airports. That's one thing that has improved. And so our aviation network plays a major role in Arizona's economy. It moves not only people, but it also moves goods, and it also provides services. I mean, we've been using it for taking care of the fires in Arizona, and then obviously in California too, they've been helping those. And so having a strong airport is super important. This sector employs 17% of all jobs in Arizona. I mean, it's almost 20% of people work directly or indirectly with an airport. So that's very important. And it's around 395,000 jobs that are in this airport field. So in addition to our aviation industry, contributes 7.6% to our state's gross domestic product. So a lot of items move through our airports, and so it's very important that we have strong and healthy airports. There's been a lot of investment in airports recently, like the Sky Harbor recently unveiled a 20-year, $38 billion comprehensive asset management plan, along with completing more than $1.5 billion in terminal upgrade projects and a SkyTrain extension. So for those of you that are up in Phoenix, you've seen this construction going on. So we're definitely working to improve our airports, and that's a good thing. And I mean, if you look at numbers based on how many passengers go through each airport, I mean, they're only increasing. Obviously this year it's been going down because of Corona, but last year in 2019, they Sky Harbor surpassed 48 million passengers. And up to this year, it was continuing to grow up. And I'm assuming that once we can get rid of the virus, it's going to come back up. So this is a very great fact to know, is that all of you are 30 minutes, or 93% of you are 30 minutes away from an all-weather runway. And that's very important because it gives you access in case of a disaster. People can provide services such as medical services, any sort of like food and things like that, that can all quickly be done through an airport. And so it's very important to have this sort of thing. And I want to touch on roads a little bit too. So our roads have seen a 32% increase in vehicle travel. And so that's something that we need to start preparing for. And for those of you that are in Phoenix, you are used to this type of traffic. Obviously, now that you're all working from home, you don't see it as much, but once we get back to the office, it's going to be going back to this. So I'm sure you all do not miss this part of working, but this is something that we need to prepare, and we need to make sure that we are expanding in the right way, because if we don't expand and the population is expanding, then that's going to be an issue. And a very important key is the FAST Act. So this is federal funding that we get, and Arizona gets $775 million annually from the FAST Act, and that's something that they always count on, and they put in their budgets for all the entities. And so the FAST Act just utilizes the funds from the Highway Trust Fund, and that covers expenses needed for federal surface transportation projects, so a lot of highways. So one of the very important things to note is that this expires in 5 days. So on September 30th, the FAST Act is going to pretty much be gone. So there's not going to be any funding in that. There is, I do want to say, and I've been trying to keep an eye on this, on what's happening. And so I do want to provide a quick update. As of last night, that I was reading that the FAST Act is on a continuing resolution. So the House of Representatives Committee on Appropriations has issued a continuing resolution that would fund federal government programs from the beginning of the fiscal year 2021. So that means October 1st through December 11th. And so the fate now remains in the House. And so they're currently negotiating with the White House. And so we're looking very closely at how the House is going to vote, or the Senate, how that Senate is going to vote next week. So the clock is ticking, and everyone's pretty concerned that if this doesn't go through, that's going to mean that a lot of budgets are going to be cut at the state level. So it's very important. And so that's one of the things that we're currently looking at. This is federal aid that we get. And so there's very much uncertainty on if this is going to come or not. And one thing to note is that the continuing resolution only provides funding for 1 year. Now, this was back in 2015 when it was started, so it was a 5-year program, and we're only looking to extend it for at least 1 more year. So what happens after that, we don't know yet. So that's something to keep in mind. I do want to touch on the gas tax. The gas tax for Arizona is the 5th lowest in the country, and when I was looking into this, I just was a bit mind blown about this. So you can look at the different states and how much they charge for their gas tax. And so you look at California, they're at 61 cents per gallon, where in Arizona is 19 cents. So there was a proposal back in February that was gaining some traction, and it sought to increase the gas tax by 6 cents a year for the next 3 years. So that would mean 18 cents by 2023. It won preliminary approval at the legislature, but was halted due to coronavirus. So there was some policies going into it, but unfortunately it was all stopped. So we need to continue these conversations. And this year it's an election year, so it's tough to get things like this through, but we definitely have to keep the conversation going. And this proposal that was gaining some traction also considered increasing taxes for registering electric, hybrid, and alternative fueled vehicles, all in the name of better funding road repair and maintenance. So I know when we throw the word out tax, it's something that people are against it. And I mean, obviously people don't want to pay more, but I think we need to change that strategy and call it an investment, which it really is an investment. When you pump fuel on your car, some of that money is going to the road you're using by your car. So it's an investment, and I know people in Arizona tend to hate the word tax, and so we just need to make sure that we communicate that yes, we're raising the gas tax, but for what? Because I mean, obviously, if you just leave it and end it at we're raising the gas tax, people are going to be upset. But they're not going to be upset when their roads and streets don't have potholes and get extended and that sort of thing and get improved. So when was the gas tax last raised in Arizona? It was back in 1991. I actually was born in 1991, and so I'm almost 30. So it's been almost 30 years that the gas tax has been raised. And so I wanted to throw this little slide here on the side. These are movies that came out in 1991. And so I want to ask all of you, how much was a movie ticket back in 1991? And you can use your phone or open up a website. How much do you think a movie ticket was back in 1991? Is it 2.14 cents, 4.21 cents, or $5.84? A little bit of trivia here. And I'm sure a lot of you are also thinking about the movies that I showed back. I mean, Beauty and the Beast and Captain Hook and all these. Kind of reminisce. So I'll give a few more seconds. Now I'll actually show the results. So you won't see the results yet until I click to the next slide. So we'll see. And this is so tough, not being able to see the audience. It's definitely something else, because I also like to know if my jokes are working or if I should stop them. So I'll just continue thinking that my jokes are working. All right, I'm gonna go on to the next slide all right, let's see how many of you all think. All right, we've got, so the common consensus is that it's B, so 4.21. And that actually is correct. So for those of you that got it right, congratulations. Give yourself a pat on the back. And so when we look at how much a ticket is nowadays, it's about a little bit over $9. So the movie tickets have more than doubled within this time period since 1991. And so it's just interesting to see that, I mean, things are going up, but our gas tax has been the same since 1991. So it's been a straight line, whereas other things keep increasing due to inflation and that sort of thing. I also want to bring back, this is, in 1991, I was just thinking like, what were my parents driving? And this is a 1990 Volkswagen Beetle. So this is what they were driving. And if you look at the graph here, this is just an MPG, so miles per gallon. And so you can see that back in 1990, it was about a little bit over 20 miles per gallon. And in 2017, it's now 25 miles per gallon. So cars are more gas efficient. They can run even on less gas because some are hybrid. And so that just means that not only has inflation taken a toll on the gas tax, also vehicles have changed and improved and been more efficient, that they use less gas. And so that's something that we need to take into account. And as I mentioned before, electric vehicles aren't actually paying a gas tax because they don't use gas, obviously. They're charging their cars at home or at charging stations. And so we need to think about, and that's something that every time I talk to somebody, they don't realize it. And so I think it's that light bulb that goes on someone's head when you are talking and having that discussion and you're like, oh yeah, that's right. Electric vehicles aren't paying the gas tax. Like what are they doing to improve our roads? Like, right, they're not paying a user fee and that sort of thing. So they're using our roads without paying for them. So we need to think about better ways as technology improves, as cars improve, how can we also move up our policies and keep them up to date? So according to the transportation nonprofit TRIP, driving on poorly maintained roads cost Arizona drivers a collective $3 billion per year in repairs. So this equates to about $576 per driver. So, I mean, we've talked about if you're driving through potholes and all of that, I mean, your car is going to need more maintenance. And so you all are paying $576 in new tires, in repairs to your car per year. So you can think about it that way. And if we can spin it where the gas tax is much less than this, I mean, everyone would, I think more about it. I mean, even I've been going, I have to admit, I love Sonoran hot dogs. And within the last few years, the Sonoran hot dog guy raised his prices. And I was like, what? But it needs to be done, right? I mean, the cost of making them is going up, so he needs to up his prices. So I think we need to do that. And if that statement doesn't justify increasing the gas tax, then I don't know what will. So we have a big problem in Arizona in highway fatality rates. So we actually have in 2018, we recorded 1.09 highway deaths per 100 million vehicle miles. And that's almost twice the national average of 0.58. So you can see on the chart here, we have a pretty high highway fatality rate, and we definitely need to work on that, making sure our roads are safe, and we can only do that with the right investment. So dams and levees, something that people will take pictures of, but they don't really quite understand what they're for, right? It's something that you say levees and they will just nod their heads. They don't really know what it means, but it's important to know they're important. I mean, they're crucial to protecting lives. And so we have about 159 levee systems, which span about 387 miles in Arizona, and they protect 345,000 people and $60 billion in property. So you can only see that if one of these were to fail, I mean, it's going to be people and property that are going to pay the price. So doing the research for the report card, we noticed that the National Levee Database, it's a great tool to be able to access. I mean, you can click on each state and each area and look at the different levees. And they have only screened about 8% of the levees. So you can see here, all of the systems, you can have a very high or in progress or very low risk, and 278 of them have not been screened. So we don't really know the current situation of each levee, and that's something that as a chapter and as a committee, we agree that we just need to improve our databases so that we can clearly show what needs improvement, because that way we can prioritize once we get funding which systems to prioritize. So that's very important to keep a tab on all our systems. You know, as for dams, our state's dams safety budget is less than $1 million annually. I mean, this is mind-blowing, which is only available to conduct inspections and manage the dam safety program. So it's really just there to keep up our dams. Without any additional resources, the risk of dam failures is heightened, and the cost of our communities could be devastating. We have 164 dams with a high hazard rating in the state. So for those of you that are in dams, they know this, but I just want to clarify that high hazard doesn't mean that they are near failure or in poor condition. This just means that they could cause destruction of property and potential loss of life if they were to fail. So, I mean, you can see all these systems are very important in protecting people. So we want to make sure that those are up to date and up to standard, and we maintain them. The good news is that 95% of Arizona's high hazard dams have an emergency action plan. So this means that they're well above the national average. And emergency action plans are important because they give communities guidelines to follow in the event of a dam failure, which can minimize the negative impacts in communities. So it's good to know that we're prepared for in case something does happen. Now, Arizona, it's all not bad news for Arizona. There are some really good news, and some of these are Arizona is forward thinking. So our bridges, only 1.6% of our 8,320 bridges were classified as poor in 2019, which is well below the national average of 7.5%. So our bridges are doing well. The Arizona Department of Transportation has a resilience program that incorporates extreme weather and climate adaptation into the design engineering process. So I definitely want to give kudos to the ADOT team for improving and implementing this. And we've also looked at other ways to minimize costs and impacts to the public, and some of these are innovative construction methods, such as the accelerated bridge construction. And we're drinking water. There's obviously, we're in the desert, and there is a concern of, do we have enough water for our lifetimes? And the fact is that there is $16 billion needed in our water systems. And this is one of the things is due to the average bill. So in 2015, the average bill was 43.69, and it's only increased 6% to 46.09 by 2017. So, I mean, obviously when we pay our water bills, part of it that goes into maintenance, and our water companies have not increased their bills. And obviously that there's another increase to the customer, but it's something that needs to be done to make sure that we continue to improve our water systems and prevent failures. Now, this was awesome news too, that Arizona is actually using way less water than the rest of the country. So we use 53,000 gallons, whereas the average American uses 64,000. So I think there's been a lot of talks about sustainability and making sure that we take care of our water, and we're in the desert, so we tend to appreciate it more than other states. And so we want to make sure that we do take care of it, and I'm happy to see that we use less water. We're not just wasting it. As we look at our wastewater systems, 50% of the state's collection network and 10% of wastewater treatment plants require rehabilitation or expansion within the next 10 years. And it's important to note that most Arizona's 315 wastewater treatment plants are between 30 and 60 years old, despite only having a design life cycle of 30 to 40 years. So that's an important thing that we all know here, is that things aren't meant to last forever, right? They need proper maintenance, and we don't design them to last for hundreds of years. And so this big overhaul would require more than $7 billion over the next 5 years. So we have a $1.4 billion gap during that span. So we want to make sure that we close this funding gap, and to make sure that we keep up our wastewater. And wastewater has been a very important thing in Arizona. It's been something that I think we're spearheading in the country, so it's something that to be proud of. There's a lot of innovation in our state, and so you can see here the city of Peoria was testing an autonomous shuttle service that is free to all. And several agencies have received grants in recent years that should push the envelope forward. And so I like that we are also working on autonomous vehicles and that sort of thing that's going to help our infrastructure, and we need to keep on pushing the envelope and not just trying to stay with the status quo. All right, so I just want to touch really quickly on this, and I know that I have about 3 minutes till questions. If I don't get to the questions, I promise I will answer your emails. I will provide my email at the end. So I do want to end this with these slides, so please bear with me. So there's room for growth. Obviously, we're at a C. I think our goal should be an A+, and so there's definitely room for growth. And so some of the key recommendations from the committee is first we need to develop a comprehensive statewide asset database and an examination rubric to establish infrastructure priorities and improve coordination of asset management across all levels of agencies. So this will make improvements more efficient and cost effective, because we'll be able to prioritize which systems need the most work. Number 2 is the current state gas tax, which was last raised in 1991, as we saw today, has not kept pace with inflation and is not sufficient to meet the needs of our growing population. So this leaves our roads to depend on uncertain federal funding, as we see the FAST Act is going to be closing here on September 30th, which we're hoping to increase that by a year at least. Arizona needs to assert greater economic independence from federal funding, so we need to be able to also, take in federal funding, but also fund ourselves. So there's only one way to do that. I think it's very important to educate the public and getting communities involved in infrastructure planning. I think if they're part of the conversation, they feel more that they have a stake in the game. So we need to bring in our communities into the conversation. With sustainability, we must incorporate principles to mitigate impacts to the quality of life for Arizonans and the natural environment. And just promote regular inspections. So Arizona needs to prioritize this across all sectors, but specifically dams and levees where publicly available data is hard to come by. So residents need to know the conditions that the structures are in for their own safety and welfare. So I'm going to take 1 or 2 more minutes just to quickly go through some of the call to action. So I hope everybody is kind of getting a little light bulb and thinking, okay, what can I do with this information? And so the call to action is kind of three part. And so we want to, 1, educate, as I mentioned, the public and politicians too, because they're not engineers. They don't really know our systems and how to manage them. So we need to be able to educate them. We also want to connect with our politicians. I think one of the things that I've been working on is just going to DC, going to our capital and communicating and just having a good relationship with our politicians, because we want to be a resource for them in case something does come up on their table, then they can reach out to us so we can give our input from an engineering standpoint. And we want to continue the conversation. So I hope that today is not the end of it, that we continue to look at this and we continue to share the report card and share these facts that we know and help push policy forward. So I had a question on here, if from which organization you are, because I want to make sure that I speak to the right public, but I'm going to skip this one and I'm going to assume that you're all from both. So just quickly going through it, and I'll touch on this for a few seconds. ASCE has a program called Key Contact Program, and it's a great way to keep up to date with what's going on in DC in our state level policies. And so I highly encourage you all to go into the website, and this is all done by ASCE Government Relations, and they do an awesome job. They basically do the homework for us, so we don't have to look out for news and articles. Like, they pretty much package it all for you to just consume it and read about it. And the awesome thing is that they actually make it really easy to take an action on it. So I'll quickly go through what that looks like. So in here, this morning, I just got an email, which is like This Week on Washington, and they give you, on this issue, this is what is going on. You can see on one of them, it's actually talking about the FAST Act and how the House will vote on it next week. And so it's really important to keep up to date. And I know that us will want to be involved in one level than the other. And one way, easy way is to do this is just to keep up to date. And as I mentioned, they make it really easy to take action. So you can click this button, it'll take you through a few prompts, and you put in your name, and it creates this letter for you that just basically says everything that you need to say. You can edit it and add a anecdote or something from your perspective. As you can see on the left, it basically picks all of your representatives. And so your state, your local, and obviously the president as well. So it's very important to do that so that we are getting the right information to our politicians. If you're an ACEC member, they also provide similar tools. And so if you go to their website, the second tab you see up at the top, labeled Advocacy, you can see that on there. It's very similar. And so you do need to be members of these organizations to be able to access this. But if you are already, I definitely want to make sure that you're aware of these tools. So like I mentioned, ACEC Action Alert, you can click here, and it'll take you through the prompts to be able to send a letter to your senator, representative, whatever it may be. And at the state level, we do have 2 people that help me out with making sure that we continue this effort. And so that's Allison Sato and Caitlin Hall. And so I want to definitely give a shout out to them. If you reach out to me and say, hey, I want to be involved, I will get you in touch with the team, and we'll make it so that we're trying to push the report card. I know it's election year, so we're trying to do a wave before the election and then one after the election. So come January, February, we're going to be also reaching out to our new representatives or the ones that stayed in office. And I'll leave you with this. You can obviously Google it. If you're looking for the report card, it is live online. And I'll leave with this one. So I'll take questions, but if we don't get to your question, feel free to reach out to me. Here's my email. Here's my LinkedIn. I'd be happy to connect with you all. And if you want to get involved, as I mentioned earlier, you can obviously reach out to me. So I'm going to hand it over to Diana for questions. Sorry I took a little bit longer.
That's okay, Jose. Thanks for all of that great update. At this moment in time, we don't have any questions from the audience, but feel free, we still have a couple minutes, so go ahead and get them in there. I do have one question that I would like you to possibly expand a little bit on as to why today. Can you expand upon the shortfall in the funding and why we should invest today and not continue to kick the can down the road?
Yeah, why today? I mean, this, like, the funding gap should have been resolved like last year, right? Or 10 years ago. It's something that, as you mentioned, we keep kicking the can down the road, and it's only gonna get worse. I mean, our infrastructure is aging by every year, and we need to make sure that we are investing now for today. And it's looking like Arizona is doing a good job at maintaining. I mean, the 2015 grade was a C as well, and the 2020 grade is a C. So we're maintaining a pretty flat trajectory, but we want to make sure that we not only do maintain what we have now, but we also want to be able to expand, because as we saw, the population is increasing, and so we want to make sure that we prepare ourselves for now, but also for the future, because that's going to be something that might bite us down the road if more people come and we don't have the right infrastructure. If people aren't getting water to their homes, I mean, those are really bad. How would you say it? Like, if we don't do that, we're gonna struggle later in the future. So, I mean, we're doing okay, but we can do better, I think, is what we should strive for. So thank you for that question. Yeah.
We did get one question. If you could put the location of the report back onto the screen.
Yep, so there it is. So the top one is the email. If you have any questions relating to the report card, you can do that, or you can email them to myself. But the report card, you can find it on infrastructurereportcard.org/Arizona. And if you go into the main one, there, infrastructurereportcard.org, you can see all of the report cards from any state. And just to keep you an update, the U.S. report card was done back in 2017. And so they're actually working to update that here in the next year or so. So that should be coming up. But as I mentioned, we got a D+ at the national level back in 2017. So we'll see what the update is.
Great, thank you, Jose. Really appreciate all of those great updates. We've got a couple minutes left in the session. If you'd like to wrap it up, there aren't any further questions. Do you have any?
All right, awesome. Well, yeah, I just want to say again, thank you so much for joining me today and learning more about our infrastructure. And as I mentioned today, I hope this doesn't end here. I mean, I hope that like after this presentation, you just don't forget about it. I think we need to do something. And as engineers, we know our fields much better than anyone does. And so we can relay that message the best to our politicians who are making policies that affect our communities. And so that's basically what it comes down to, is we need to be able to provide our resources, not only in the work that we do, but we also need to take it a step further and talk to our legislators so that we can push the right policies forward that will help Arizona get to the lead of the pack. So I think we're doing a good job so far, but I think we could be doing a better job. So I highly encourage you all to stay involved, stay active, and thank you all for joining me today. And I'll throw my email there in case you want to reach out to me personally. I'd be happy to answer your questions. So thank you all.